Oof, he's a fine creature. Where'd you get him?
I won him. Lucky roll of the dice. So I called him Rolo.
Since August 2014, when its first season was released, Outlander has become one of the most popular and critically acclaimed historical shows ever featured. Fans adore the series for its intricate plots and storylines, for its careful selection of talented cast members. However, like every other good show, Outlander cast members have to follow certain rules to make a series a success. So stick around as we take a look at some of the strict rules the Outlander cast must follow on set. But before we continue, now seems like a good time just to take a moment to give us a little like and hit that subscribe button just a little bit so you don't miss out on any of our cool new videos that we post. Rule 1. Always be ready to film through the night. The Outlander show is not only a commentary, but also a look into life in the 1700s, as explored through the eyes of a modern woman. This is why the showrunners and producers of the show have always stressed that the series has to be as realistic as possible. Well, if you're a fan, you'll know this was mostly achieved, except for that tiny time travel bit. They also had limited budget for the show, and so the showrunners had to figure out a creative way to film night sequences without having to make use of digital means to turn day into night. Then they thought, well, there's only one obvious option: film the night sequences at night. It's really that simple. Not so simple for the actors and producers though, because this meant they had to burn the midnight oil almost every night. This made the cast members become nocturnal beings, sleeping through the day and working through the night. It was the only way they could be wide awake during the filming. Caitriona Balfe, when asked what advice she'd given her past self before she came onto the show, said, "Get sleep. You're never gonna sleep again." This statement was completely accurate when it came both to Caitriona, playing Claire Fraser on the show, and Sam Heughan, who played Jamie Fraser. They are often called to not only shoot during the night, but also during the day. They only had a few hours of sleep, and since sleeping at odd hours made them wonky, they usually just had to stay awake throughout. Now imagine staying up all day and all night just to act out a few scenes. Is this really worth all the stress? But these actors were as dedicated and committed as they come, willing to sacrifice their comfort and peace of mind for you, their fans. Sam had also stated his plight on social media. Yeah, he opened up about his frustrations about staying awake for multiple hours, only to have to wait for the weather before filming. No one was pleased with that. It's one thing to be denied sleep, and it's another thing to be subjected to the weather's mood swings. It's a miracle these actors weren't cranky on set. Some of us definitely would be. He posted a meme on Twitter with the Cookie Monster looking incredibly bored and captioned it, "Oh, night shoots, waiting for the rain to stop." So next time you see a night scene on the Outlander series, remember that it costs multiple days of sleep and their peace of mind to get that scene. And hey, maybe it actually help build character for their characters. Rule number 2, no matter how cold you are, do not show it. The next rule is pretty much what it sounds like, and while it may sound weird and absurd, it was the reality they had to put up with. In our present day environment, we live in insulated houses with controlled and regulated temperatures to suit our unique preferences. We also buy clothing that retains our body heat and keeps us warm despite the freezing weather outside. However, those who lived in the 1700s were not too privy to these luxuries, and so they couldn't keep themselves warm. So what did they do in the 1700s? They got used to it, and you never see them shivering due to a little cold. To make the show as realistic as possible, the cast members also had to get used to being cold, even when they had to shoot in the rain. It had to look to the regular viewer like they were the one with the cold weather, and so they could not show that they were cold. Executive producer Meryl Davis, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, had referred to an earlier scene in the show where Claire was seen saying goodbye to her ex-husband. Meryl had stated that everyone on set that day was extremely cold. In her words, "I've never seen a group of more miserable looking people." Of course, they were miserable. They were not sleeping, they were cold, and you told them not to show it. That's brutal. But it's once again a sacrifice that had to happen for the show to come out excellently. So kudos to the entire staff and cast. Sophie Skelton, who played Brianna Randall Fraser, also recalled the scene where Jamie attacked her character in the woods. Apparently, there was sideways snow on that day, and the cameraman had to place his camera on the ground because he could no longer feel his fingers due to the freezing cold. Pause for a moment. He could not feel his fingers. When was the last time you felt that cold? This is what they had to put up with, and let us tell you, they did so gladly. Claire also spoke about the panic scene between her and Sam, which had to be shot despite the rain falling down around them. In a conversation with Entertainment Weekly, she said, "We were sitting on this supposed blanket having this picnic, and between every take, prop guys would have to come in, lift up all the plates, pour the water off, and put them back down." From this, it's obvious that your favorite cast members had an excruciatingly painful time on set. However, all these terrible experiences helped the actors sink into their characters from the 1700s, and they were able to fully relate to what they had gone through during their time. This helped them play their roles as efficiently and as accurately as possible. Rule 3, you'll be getting some body heat. Loyal fans of the Outlander series are all too aware of the steamy scenes that come up every now and then on the show. According to Kat and Sam, these scenes were not their best scenes to film. In describing the steamy scenes, the actors have made use of words like awkward and uncomfortable. Let's paint a clear picture for you. You're in a room full of the cast and crew. The spotlight's on you as you do double tango with one of your best friends while also exchanging passionate kisses. Awkward, right? Well, that's how they felt. Kat had once shared how nerve-wracking her first scenes were as they involved passionate romance with Tobias Menzies, who played Frank Randall. In her words, I had barely met Tobias. I was like, well, hello, nice to meet you. Let's get our coats off and get into bed. You're usually doing those scenes in front of about 20 people, mostly burly, sweaty men whose jeans are like halfway down their bum cracks, so it's quite easy not to get too carried away. For some fans, hearing this just takes some of the romance out of the scenes. But what can they do? It's showbiz, after all. And it goes to show how great of actors they actually are. Sam had also recounted some of his embarrassing moments. He had said, I went to the bathroom and dropped my modesty pouch into the urinal. I then had to tell someone to get help, which resulted in them announcing it over the intercom. Sam Moss's modesty pouch, Sam Moss's modesty pouch. You probably didn't know this before now, but modesty pouches were often worn by actors to keep their private areas covered, at least to some extent. But like Caitriona Balfe said, these little instruments barely kept your modesty intact. Again, Sam Moss's modesty pouch in the urinal. Yeah, I'm not grabbing that. Imagine, or don't, but regardless of whether it did or didn't, the actors had to put on a great performance, convincing the audience that they were not cold, sleep-deprived people worried about their precious modesty. They also had to make the audience believe that they were having a truly steamy and smashing time while rolling around with one another on screen. And from the looks of it, they succeeded. Rule 4, learn as much as you can. The actors were required to learn a variety of skills to help them truly pull off their roles convincingly. This was not just limited to learning about the 1700s, but to several other details as it came to Kat, who had to learn several types of surgical techniques to pull off a stunt on Claire. In fact, the show brought on a medical advisor whose nickname was Dr. Claire. Kat had to learn the appropriate way to suture a wound, and she was required to recreate this on a fake piece of skin attached to the original person she had to sew it up on while filming. As stated earlier, the showrunner wanted the show to look as realistic as possible, so it's only necessary for Kat to learn the appropriate techniques. Of course, the knowledge would now be beneficial to Kat as she can proffer average help for someone in need of medical services. Our 2 cents would be for her to add that to her resume. You never know what employers are searching for these days. But the point here is these actors weren't just acting, they were also being schooled. From history to biology, they had to learn everything there was to learn. Would you go back to school for a scene or two? Maybe not, but these actors would. Rule 5, be careful on set. This was another important rule for the cast to follow. They were required to be courteous on set, and this proved difficult considering the complicated situations they found themselves in. However, the unfriendly situations helped the cast members bond with one another on set, and they were able to produce a truly astounding show. You have to agree. So if you were sleep deprived rather than being cranky with everyone who came around you, you have to remember that everyone else is going through the same thing, and you just have to look out for the next person. These were the rules your favorite cast members had to adhere to ensure that the show came out excellently. We hope you enjoy watching this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. Until the next time, we'll catch you then.